Somebody you love is dead right now. And if you are honest, not the answer you give at the funeral, the one you think at 2 in the morning, you do not actually know where they are. You have been told, probably more than once, watching over you, in a better place, looking down. And you wanted it to be true so badly that you said thank you and you went home, and you laid in the dark and the question came back anyway. Where is she? Right now, this minute. There is one man in the whole account who could have answered that. One. His name was Lazarus, and he was dead for 4 days. Not clinically dead, not a few minutes on a table. 4 days in a sealed tomb in the heat of Judea, long enough that his own sister said out loud what everyone was thinking about the smell. And then he walked out. He came back to a village full of people who had just buried him. He lived. He ate. The account says that later a crowd came to Bethany specifically to look at him. So here is the thing almost nobody notices. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. John records what Lazarus was wearing when he came out. He records the cloth around his face. He records what Jesus said, and what the sisters said, and what the crowd did, and what the leaders decided afterward. John records no experience from Lazarus about where he was during those 4 days. Not a sentence, not a word. No tunnel, no light, no relatives waiting, no description of anywhere at all. And before any of it, standing on a road 2 miles away, Jesus had already told his men exactly what had happened to his friend. And the word he used was not the word you would expect. Stay with me, because that one word is the whole answer, and it has been sitting in plain English in your Bible your entire life. First, let me say something plainly, because this matters more than the rest of the video. Many grieving people have been comforted by the thought that someone they love is watching from above. This video is not here to mock that grief. It is asking a narrower question. When the Bible itself describes death, what words does it use, and what hope does it actually give? That is all. Not who is right. Not who is wrong. What does the text say? Because here is what I have noticed about that question. Nobody asks it at the funeral. At the funeral, you are surrounded. People bring food. Somebody says the thing about a better place and you nod, because what else do you do, and because part of you wants it. The question does not come then. It comes about 3 weeks later. It comes when the casseroles stop and the phone stops and you are standing in her kitchen holding a cup that still has her lipstick on the rim, and the house is very quiet, and you think, where are you? Not in general, not eventually, now. And that question has a shape to it that the comfort you were given does not quite fit. Because if she is watching this. She is watching you fall apart in her kitchen at 11 at night. And that is not comfort. If you think about it for more than a second, that is a second grief. So people stop thinking about it. They put the question in a drawer and they get on with it, and it stays in the drawer for years. I want to open that drawer with you, carefully, with the text open. And we are going to start where the Bible starts, with a man who had a body that stopped working, and a sister who was told to expect him back, and a friend who used a very specific word. One thing before we go in, and then I will not interrupt again. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I read every single one. Bethany, 2 miles outside Jerusalem. A house with 3 adults in it, 2 sisters and a brother, and Jesus knew that house well enough to stay in it. The brother gets sick. The sisters send word. And the account says something that has bothered readers for 2,000 years. Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days. By the time he starts walking, Lazarus is already dead. And on the road, before anyone tells him anything, he turns to the men with him and says this:
"Lazarus, our friend, has fallen asleep, but I am traveling there to awaken him from sleep."
And they misunderstood him completely. They said, well, if he is sleeping, he will get better, which is what any of us would say. Sleep is a good sign. Sleep means the fever broke. So the account does something it rarely does. It stops the story and explains the vocabulary to you directly. Listen to how blunt it is. Jesus had spoken about his death, but they imagined he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. And then he says it in the plain way so nobody can miss it.
Lazarus has died.
Now stop and look at what just happened, because it is easy to read past. He said sleep. He meant death. The writer tells you he meant death, and then he repeats it in plain words. So it was not a euphemism to spare their feelings. He was not softening it. He said the awkward thing first, the thing that had to be explained, and then translated it. Which means the word sleep was not the polite version of what happened to Lazarus. It was the accurate one. And hold that word next to the thing we started with. If Lazarus was asleep, then Lazarus had no report to give, and John has nothing to write down. And once you accept that, a lot of other verses stop being confusing. Because the Bible does not use that word once, it uses it constantly, and it is very consistent about what it means by it. And the bluntest statement about death in the whole collection does not come from someone who had never seen a funeral. It comes from a king who had everything, buried people anyway, and wrote it all down at the end of his life. He had money, power, wisdom, and the leisure to think about it longer than anybody else alive. And what he wrote about the dead is not poetic. It reads like a man refusing to lie to you. Ecclesiastes says it about as directly as a book can say anything. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing at all. And a few lines later, in case that was not clear enough, there is no work, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, the place to which you are going. No work, no planning, no knowledge, no wisdom. Not less of those things, not a different kind, none. The Psalms say the same thing about the moment it happens, and the timing in that verse is worth hearing slowly. His spirit goes out, he returns to the ground. On that very day his thoughts perish. On that very day. Not gradually. Not after a journey. The thinking stops when the person stops. Which is the second time the text has now explained the silence in Bethany without ever mentioning it. Now, I know what that sounds like the first time. It sounds cold. It sounds like the opposite of comfort. Hold that feeling for 4 more minutes because the text does not leave you there, and where it takes you is better than where you thought you were going. But we have to walk through the honest part first. Here's the honest part. If the dead know nothing at all, then the watching from above is not the thing this text is offering. It offers something else, and we are almost to it. And I want you to notice something about how that lands. Under the sadness, is there any relief in it? Because a lot of people are carrying something they never say out loud. The fear that the person they lost saw the hospital, saw the argument at the funeral, saw the estate, sees them now, failing. The text closes that. Whatever else it takes that. The text does not describe her as somewhere conscious, feeling the hours pass. It describes death as sleep and hope as remembrance and resurrection. Which means the account does not put her at the hospital or at the funeral or in the kitchen watching you now. Which is exactly why John has nothing to record from Lazarus. 4 days. If there was something to report, that man had the story of the century. He is standing in a village where every single person just watched him get buried. If he had seen anything at all, that is what the account records. That is what Bethany talks about for the next 50 years. Instead, John records the linen, the cloth on his face, Jesus saying, "Loose him and let him go." And then the account simply moves on to what the leaders decided, which is a different story and one we told last week. But for our question tonight, the silence is the point. Not because silence proves anything by itself, because it fits exactly what the text already told us the condition was. He was asleep. You do not come back from dreamless sleep with a report. And now the word starts to do something you did not expect. Because sleep is not a word about ending. Sleep is a word about duration. Nobody says a person is asleep unless they expect them to get up. If you never got up again, we would use a different word. Sleep already contains the morning inside it. He was not somewhere. He was waiting. And that is not a modern idea. There was a man who worked it out 3,000 years ago, sitting in ashes, having lost more than most people lose in a lifetime.
If a man dies, can he live again?
He asks it like a real question because it was one. And then he answers it himself, and the answer is the most patient thing in the book.
I will wait all the days of my compulsory service until my relief comes. You will call, and I will answer you. You will long for the work of your hands.
You will call, and I will answer. He is not describing a place he goes. He is describing a voice he expects. And the word he uses for what God feels toward the dead is the word you use for someone you miss. He thought God would miss him, and that God would say his name, which is exactly what Jesus described in one of the most specific things he ever said about the future, and almost nobody quotes the whole thing.
Do not be amazed at this, because the hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear his voice and come out.
Read that phrase again, memorial tombs. Not holding cells, not waiting rooms, not a place where anyone is conscious of anything. Memorial. A memorial is not for the person inside it. A memorial exists because somebody outside it remembers. That phrase points the hope away from a conscious location and toward remembrance and a future call. All those in the memorial tombs will hear his voice and come out. And that is the whole hope, right there, and it is completely different from the hope you were handed. The hope is not that she is somewhere nice. The hope the text gives is remembrance by God, and a voice Jesus said the dead will hear. Which means everything now depends on the memory of the one doing the calling, and that is a much steadier thing to lean on than a location. Think about what that solves. It does not matter what happened to the body. It does not matter if there was a casket or a fire or the sea or nothing found at all. That question, the one some of you have carried privately, the one about whether a decision you made at a funeral home changed anything, that question is answered. The body was going back to dust either way. It always was. The account says so plainly, dust you are and to dust you will return. Some of you need me to say that more directly, so I will. More than half the funerals in this country are cremations now, which means a lot of people watching this made that choice. For a parent, for a husband, for a child, and some of you have quietly wondered ever since whether you took something away from them, whether that practical decision somehow affected the resurrection hope. Look at what the text actually ties the hope to. Not to a preserved body, not to a plot of ground, not to anything you could have bought or failed to buy at a funeral home. It ties the hope to being remembered by the one who is going to call. And the dust makes the point for you. A body in the ground becomes dust. A body in a fire becomes dust faster. The text does not make the hope depend on preserving the old material. It says the dead will hear a voice. If you chose an urn, the Bible does not tie resurrection hope to a preserved body. It ties that hope to God's memory and to the voice Jesus said the dead will hear. What is preserved is not the material. It is the person in the memory of God. And it is not a small group. Paul said it in a courtroom, under oath, in front of a Roman governor, when he had every reason to be careful with his words. There is going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. Both. That is a wider door than most people expect. And I know what some of you did with that sentence just now, because I have read the comments on videos like this one for a long time. Some of you are not grieving somebody who died well. You are grieving somebody who died angry or drunk or estranged or in the middle of something they never made right. And you have been quietly wondering whether that word includes someone like them. The verse does not say only the righteous. It says both. That does not let us pronounce the future of any one person. It does let us stop closing a door the Bible itself leaves open. There is one more person in this account I want you to meet properly, because she is the only one who says out loud what most of us actually believe. Martha, older sister, the practical one. Her brother has been dead 4 days, and she walks up the road to meet Jesus before he even reaches the house, and she does not soften it.
If you had been here, my brother would not have died.
And he tells her, your brother will rise. And listen to her answer, because it is the most honest sentence in the chapter.
I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day.
She knew the doctrine. She had it exactly right. She could have taught it. She did not say, I hope so. She did not say, maybe. She said, I know. And then she named the exact event and the exact day it happens on. That is not weak faith. That is a woman who had been paying attention in a household where the teacher stayed over. And she was still standing in the road crying. So if you came here tonight knowing all of this already, if you could have recited every verse I just read, and it still hurts, and you were starting to think that meant something was wrong with your faith, Martha is in the account for you. Right belief and real grief in the same woman on the same afternoon. Knowing where they are does not make you stop missing them. It was never supposed to. So, where is she right now, this minute? The Bible does not place her somewhere watching. It places the hope in God's memory, and in the voice Jesus promised the dead will hear. Not suffering, not aware of 1 second passing, not needing anything from you tonight, not watching, remembered, waiting for the call. And the next thing she will be aware of, the very next thing with nothing in between, is a voice saying her name. That is what happened to the man we started with. 4 days went by in Bethany. His sisters lived through every hour of them. There was a funeral and a stone and a crowd of mourners in the house. For him, there was none of that. No 4 days. He heard his name, and he walked toward the light in the doorway, and as far as anything the account records, he had nothing at all to say about the gap. Because there was no gap to describe. If you are carrying someone tonight, do something for me. Put their first name in the comments. Just the name. Nothing else. Not so anyone can fix it. Just so it is written down somewhere by somebody who still says it out loud. And if this reached you, send it to the one person you thought of while you were watching. You know who. One last thing. Everything we just read hangs on one claim. That the voice doing the calling can actually do it. There's an account where somebody watched that happen, up close, and it terrified the men in charge so badly that they held a meeting about it that same week. That is the video on the screen now. I will see you there.